Siddharth Gandhi from 1kosmos, who's going to introduce the next section. So Siddharth, the stage is yours.
Good afternoon. Very interesting session, right? But what I do want to present today is a little bit different way, right? I mean, I don't want to showcase our product or talk about it, right? I think the best form of marketing is when you tell a story. And we thought, why not tell the story and hear from the horse's mouth? So what I do want to do today is bring in two industry veterans who are going to talk about their journey to passwordless, right? For the last few years, we've been talking about the future is passwordless. But very interestingly, what I'm going to present to you today with the two gentlemen is the future is today, because we have Mr. Mathan Babu. Mathan, if you can please join us. He's the CISO of Vodafone Idea. And 1kosmos has taken Vodafone Idea passwordless. And he's going to share his experience today. Along with him joined Mr. Nankumar Sarvade. So please, if you can join us. So Mr. Nankumar Sarvade, a very, very well-known gentleman from the industry. He's been around for the last 35, 40 years, very, very extremely well-known. And so Nankumar sir is part of our advisory board, and he's going to moderate the session today with the Fireside Chat for the next 15, 20 minutes. And for the last 5, 7 minutes, we're going to throw it open to the audience to ask questions to both of them. So enjoy the session today. Thank you.
Thanks, Siddharth. Great to be back in the DSCI event, an organization very dear to my heart, and great to meet so many friends here. This fireside chat in the middle of a summer day is something which I'm sure you will enjoy sitting indoors. But starting with the theme of passwordless, right? I remember when we were setting up Rabbit in 2016 onwards, and one of the aspirational things that we wanted to do was to go passwordless. And of course, it had to go through a certain journey of understanding what technologies are there and what benefit it provides. But that wow factor of, completely doing away with passwords was very much on our minds. But here we are today, fast forward, and we have somebody very distinguished from the industry. He was introduced as the CISO, but he's actually the CTO and the Chief Privacy Officer for Vodafone. So that aspect is very much there, and probably we'll learn from him about those things also. So Mathan, probably if you could tell a little bit about yourself and Vodafone, just to set the context.
So my name is Mathan. I am responsible for the overall technology security. Technology security as a word typically differentiates because in the telco environment, at least we are responsible for, there is an IT section. We are a large OT shop as well because the telecom equipments are all broadly OT driven. So accountable for both the IT and the telecommunication side of security. That's why it's CTSO and Data Privacy Officer. That's what the role that I handle. And I'm sure all of you know about Vodafone Idea. Merged two entities, Oda and Idea merged entity. We have been in existence for at least a couple of decades now. But as merged entity, it's a 5th year of run for us, and here we are. That's with over about, internally we would be like 10 plus thousands of employees, on roll, off roll, larger distribution ecosystem to the tune of 40, 50,000. That's how telco operates with subscriber base. I'm sure all of you would know roughly about 250 million odd customer consumer base. We also have a large enterprise customer ecosystem to the tunes of 9-10 thousands of enterprise customers whom we provide services to. So that's broadly who we are and what I do with Vodafone Idea.
One thing which Mathan did mention, which is of particular interest to the FinSec community, is he was the CISO of NPCI too for
about 3 years I was the CISO for NPCI. Most of you, I met many of the friends here when I came here to the event, many banking colleagues and fintechs and startups that I have interacted during my NPCI tenure. Two different, and prior I was with the bank as well as HDFC Bank. So from banking, I'm one who moved from banking fraternity to a telco, trying to enrich more knowledge around how telecommunication will change with the advent of newer and newer evolution that is happening in the telecommunication side. Yeah.
Right. So when you were looking at the problems to be solved, or the business case for this particular solution? What were the ingredients of that particular problem?
So I think when we thought through this journey of passwordless, and we are a historic company, right? 20 years plus, and so is many of you here in the system. We have gone through the situation of applications. Some of them over here would have hundreds and hundreds of applications. The digitally newborn companies which have built apps possibly would be able to well manage it in 5, 10, 20 kind of apps. But these applications have, at least for large enterprises, they have mushroomed to the extent that they are extremely heavy in number. By design principle, these entities have done the early design stages wrong, because each application, when they wanted to mushroom, they have chosen to have a standalone identity, right? Individual identity. And each identity, so put the burden on the user, stating that if there are 40 applications, I have 40 different digital identity. And especially in the connected world that we live in, digital identity is how we recognize you. It's not by what we see yourself as. So it plays a crucial role. While there were objectively single sign-on technologies tried to solve this problem, it still came out with its own nuances of inability to integrate, very complex to manage, etc. So will authentication become a single sign-on and one platform service 40, 50, 200 plus application? That did not solve the problem. So it came to a situation that such diverse individual identification and authentication will survive. So the challenge was, how do we still manage that and ease away the problems that users are having, which is where the thought process around eliminating password started coming in thought process. And it's not a new topic. It has been there in people's mind, attempting to do it for long enough. That's how the concept originated even for us. We started looking at how do we simplify the time that the user takes and avoid the risk of making people write down passwords, because the moment you have more passwords to remember, and with password rotation cycles that we have today, which is forced upon all the CISOs over here, every 45 days or 90 days, you are forcing people to change the password. The rotation itself forces people to either look at a vault or look at somewhere to write it down. So those were challenges we thought, and we saw that there is a definitive merit in looking at if we are able to simplify this by taking and adopting a passwordless journey. And that's how the journey for us began, sir.
Right. You mentioned password vault, and I've been very early adopter of this. And the pain it every time subjects me to first put the master password and then try to find out and then copy and paste and so on. And many sites really don't allow you to paste, you have to type in every time. So this whole password thing is very clunky, as we know. But then how did you, what were the factors that made you choose 1kosmos as the solution provider?
So when we, we tried to solve two problems. The first problem that we tried to solve is password coming in possession of the wrong people's hand. And as a telco, it is very, very important for us to protect the digital identity of user, right? So those problems were always solved by having what is called as more than one factor of authenticating user. And that was a historical way of how that was solved. And that's how most of you today use, and we were also using that. We wanted to evolve from that to make the multi-factor not being compromised, but at the same time try and take a seamless journey to make it completely passwordless. So while multi-factor continue to exist, and seamless way to make it user-friendly. That is the time we started evaluating who available in the market, readiness to integrate with, as a 20-year-old multi-systems that we had. The complexity of integrating with many applications, it's not an easy science to solve because these are built over ages, etc. So when we evaluated, we had simple problems to solve. which is remote connect. Obviously, all of us came from the era of COVID. All of us have opened our doors for remote connected VPNs, etc. So we tried solving that for one app, which is primarily to begin with solving the password and authentication problem for remote connection. Because we went ahead very advanced to permit almost all our employees to operate from home and critical users to connect to critical infrastructure from home. So the authentication, and there were multiple instances, including passwords, including OTPs, sharing used to happen, and I'm sure it would be the same similar state of affair each of you would be. So that's something that we attempted to solve in a passwordless manner, and that's the first set of applications that we evaluated ourselves. One thing that we got fascinated was the seamless and ease at which the 1kosmos team did it for us was very quick. The transition for us to onboard humongous count of employees happened in about less than a week around timeline. Technically less than a week, but possibly the total time frame could have been under, say, 15 days or so. That made us get a wow factor. Customer delight is more important, right? So that wow factor allowed me to try and see, can we have now look upon the selective business critical applications, top management, critical users. So we sorted down what will we do first, what will we do next, and so on. That's the way that journey began. We are with them, associated with them now for slightly close to a year or so. And today I can take pride to tell that we would have seamlessly integrated about 8 of my laundry list of applications, but 8 is still a number. And the journey, we are able to accelerate that from one to next to forward. We will still have challenges on some app we may have to give away with, etc. Because of the inherent nature of how those applications would have been built. But not to boil the ocean completely and solve the problem holistically, we took the baby step forward for 1 at a time, 2 at a time, and then that's how we are progressing, sir.
So would you would like to share some insights on any implementation experiences, any productivity benefits, anything on that?
Wow, that's a very interesting question. In spite of having few things that I was also amazed by seeing, and I showed it to my management, and we were thrilled to see these numbers. Number of re-attempts that used to happen by people trying to type passwords used to be humongous for us. Number of reset requests, because as CISOs we enforce failed attempts, lock the account, right? The fail could be for me 3, for you 5, for somebody else could be X number. But and there are higher probability that the users forget. And in a rush, possibly significant error like caps lock being on, attempted first time, or he would not have recognized that the second time. Third time he attempts, oh shit, failed, and then gone through, right? So those happens from a user inconvenience. CISOs may not be privy to it because it is IT's headache and IT manages that problem. So the service tickets that used to come for reset of passwords, etc., used to be humongous. Unknowingly, we solved the entire IT problem now. Now we get to see hardly any. There are still set of users for selective set of applications continuing to use passwords. So those are the areas where we still have hassles coming in. Otherwise, for what we have migrated to, it has come almost close to, I wouldn't say almost, it is 0 from a service desk ticketing standpoint. So as a CISO, I was not impressed solving IT's problem, but at some point in time, you can show that value back to IT as well. So that's a hidden benefit that we have managed to accomplish as well, sir.
So considering the very large number of user base that you have, I'm sure, and in your role as the privacy officer also, do you see any specific benefits from this approach for privacy as well as on compliance?
So associating privacy for us is exhibiting trust back to our consumers. Say, there are occasions, it used to happen that who is in possession of the consumer data, right? Now the who is somebody who is supplying the username and the password. Whoever is in possession of the username and password had the ability to look into users' information. So thereby, for me to entrust with my customers, which is consumers, publicly telling that your data records are safe, is only to the extent of who is in possession of my username, password details to these critical applications. That's why we began the journey to try and cover the first critical applications. Today I can tell very confidently. Some of those we can tell if in possession of, if in somebody's hand, it is with that relevant person whom we have authorized. It is only that authorized guy who is in possession of that data, right? So to that extent, privacy is something that I can relate back and provide by. I missed the second part, sir. My apologies. The second.
Any compliance-oriented?
Sure. So, and there is no denial. Earlier that used to happen that, especially as a telco, we come across similar to financial frauds. There are multiple occasions, telecommunication associated frauds also lands up happening, and we are privy to some of them, right? So in such, there is normally a denial. Unlike for banking ecosystem where there is a, say, consumer side obligation that comes in, withdrawal typically lands up happening, say, for example, in a ATM or monitored ecosystem like branch where cameras are there. For us, that are not way too well captured as appropriately, right? So the distribution ecosystem could be unmonitored distribution ecosystem as well. So the authorization part, release of the SIMs part, now at least we have the ability to confirm and affirm that he who has issued is the same person who has issued, right? So at least to that extent, we are in a position to accomplish a broader level of compliance aspects, sir. So in both the way, hidden manner, I could say this journey is, while it could have been established even with the two-factor authentications that were historically there, with those earlier the issue used to be people can tell that I still gave the OTP to a trusted party. Today you can't tell that because it is through the passwordlessness, the device trust, etc. that we have implemented. The person who has approved is exactly the person who has approved. So we are able to hold accountable the person. Yeah.
Right. I think telecom is so critical in infrastructure and linked to government requirements on national security also. Probably that is something which also may be there. But I wanted to particularly ask from the audience point of view, do you see, given that financial services is a very highly regulated sector, any specific insights that you want to share about this approach?
So most of the finance vertical has tried and adopted the second factor. Second factor is a very, very crucial factor, and right from historical days, whether it is ATM plus a card plus PIN as a concept, banking fraternity introduced that. And many of you, even in the internet banking side, has tried introducing, some of the banks introduced, say, a grid-based approach, a token-based approach, etc. But it's still, from a user experience standpoint, it's still, look at it either way, other way, it's still a convenience, inconvenience association is how anybody feels. On top of it, today there are, for convenience, users start storing passwords in browser histories, saved as part of browsers. So, and we have read about the malwares which are capable of stealing passwords from the browser cache, etc., etc. So, on the finance side, it is, if you look at your consumers well, you should possibly have to have a lookout to avoid away these nature of still password becoming important criteria to authenticate. So in my view, this is an important aspect from a banking fraternity for your consumers to be also looked upon. That's how I see it as.
That's really wonderful to hear, and thanks for sharing the details. I wanted to give the audience an opportunity to ask any hard questions if you want to pose. There at the back, yeah.
Is it on?
Yeah, we can hear you.
So, Matan, a simple question. Which is better, single sign-on or passwordless? Because I think coming from the BFSI vertical, right? So, passwordless may not be easy to adopt, right? Especially, when you deal with RBI, SAB, NHB, and, other regulations.
Yeah.
However, single sign-on we see, benefit, right? Where we, ask about the user convenience, not remembering, most of the passwords, right? But when you do a single sign-on within your corporate applications, so you just, type the password, of course, and as you mentioned, 2FA is must, right? Because you can't live with 2FA because there is always chance of first authentication getting compromised. So yeah, just wanted to have your views. Thanks.
So there is, in my view, there is not a straight right or wrong approach to it. In my view, like I told, adapting an SSO is relatively difficult. That's what my personal experience is. But in a corporate, in my case, if there are 100 applications, 30 of them we have done already single sign-on. Where I have done single sign-on, with the single sign-on, I have adopted the passwordless, right? So there is no right or wrong to it, but it is easy to implement a passwordless. That aside, it will still not breach any of your regulation because even with passwordless, you are actually not bypassing authentication and authorization. You still have an authentication in place, authorization in place, but it is just that you are making it seamless for the user. So you don't violate any regulatory needs by going passwordless. So adoption, you can integrate to a SSO if you are already on that journey. Otherwise, in lieu of SSO, which is complex to implement, you can still start the passwordless journey. That's how, if I were you, I will approach that problem. Yeah.
I'm afraid we have run out of time as the clock is telling me. So thank you very much, Matan, for sharing all the insights and your wonderful experience. Thanks to the audience for holding on just before the lunch. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all. Thank you.
We have tokens of gratitude coming out to you. What better way to wrap up a conversation other than to actually hear it from the horse's mouth itself? Siddharth, would you like to join them on stage as well? Customer voice, the journey to passwordless. Okay, audience, can we have a huge round of applause for the Fireside Chat? Thank you so much. Thank you for enlightening us with the insights and, of course, the context that you set from that point of view.